am the founder of a company called 40-20, which is a growth advisory and digital marketing agency for businesses in OTT video. So we work with both direct-to-consumer streaming services and then also B2B solutions providers. In addition to that, I advise a company called Zemoga, which is an award-winning product development company that empowers some of the largest media companies with advanced design and engineering across every major streaming platform. So prior to that, I co-founded a company, Float Left Interactive, back in 2009, and we were some of the earliest people that were kind of batshit crazy enough to decide to scrap our successful web development business and decide to focus exclusively on streaming video back in 2009. It worked out, but probably should have waited a couple years for that. And then part of that experience, so I designed some of the first early connected TV apps. I worked with companies like the NBA, did an early prototype for them and Roku, as well as MOG, which is a music streaming service similar to what we now have here in Spotify. Ultimately, that was acquired by Beats Audio and then later acquired by Apple. And then over my career, I've worked with some pretty large and relevant media companies, kind of post and after acquisition of Viacom, CBS, Disney, NBC, Sony, to name a few. So it's really no better time than now, and I kind of feel like I've been saying this since 2015, to be in the OTT industry. Right now, I mean, since 2018, the industry's grown over 16%. Right now, the market's projected to reach over 330 billion by 2025. And one thing I want to point out is all these numbers are pre-COVID-19, so you can expect some adjustments to the numbers here, only for the better, and only a better opportunity for publishers. So fun fact, more people have at least a single video subscription than they do a single pay TV subscription. And the total number of digital video viewers topped over 235 million in 2019, represents over 70% of the US population. And of those users, the average OTT viewer is watching about 17 hours, or spending 17 hours a week on these platforms. So there's four, I mean, there's a lot, but there's four main distribution platforms to distribute content on. We have OTT aggregators, companies like Amazon Channels, Roku Channel, social media platforms, your YouTube, Instagrams, your Facebooks, free ad-supported streaming services, Xumo, Samsung TV Plus, Pluto, and then ultimately the inevitable direct-to-consumer apps, so your branded products across the web, mobile, and connected TV. So what I'm going to do is just go through some pros, cons, and some best practices. And we'll start with OTT aggregators, which are essentially third-party OTT distribution platforms that sell a la carte video subscriptions. Essentially, these have really become the new cable companies. So examples of these, as I mentioned, Amazon Channels, which is an extension of the Prime Video service, and approximately 2/3 of the Prime member base of 150 million subscribers are using the video product. The Video Channels program features 160 channel partners in the US and worldwide, about 260 channel partners across the usual suspects, HBO, Showtime, Starz, you name it. And then based on what I've seen, it's not uncommon that 50% of a company's overall OTT subscription base comes directly from an OTT aggregator such as Amazon. So Roku is another flavor. Roku now in the direct-to-consumer business through the Roku channel, which is unlike Amazon, which is kind of subscription basis, centered around free ad-supported movies and other content. And they also sell their a la carte subscription packages. And in 2019, Roku channel reached about 56 million viewers. All right, the last of the big three OTT device platform companies that have turned into OTT aggregators, the Apple TV app, which is home to the typical a la carte subscription add-ons, including its own Apple TV Plus product. And one thing I want to point out is there's a lot of press before and still about the launch of Apple TV Plus. And what I want to point out is the future of Apple TV business. It more lies within the aggregator product, the TV app, than so the TV Plus product. And then the last flavor of OTT aggregators are going to be MVPDs. So companies like Hulu, Sling TV, YouTube TV, and Philo, allowing consumers to buy a la carte subscriptions on top of their products. Okay, so pros of working with an OTT aggregator would be quick to market. So compared to building a direct-to-consumer app, whether that's something you've done or looking to do, standing up these little mini sites or portals are a lot simpler. They're also a lot more cost-effective. It's aside from investing in content, whether it be creating content or licensing content, you're going to have to do that anyway. But OTT aggregators are going to be able to offload the cost of marketing, distribution, customer support. Also could allow you, depending where you are with your own direct-to-consumer plans, it allows you to test your concept. So for example, Up Faith and Family was starting to test the waters on launching an OTT product. They weren't ready at that particular time to go full direct-to-consumer. So what they did is they leveraged an affiliate strategy, namely Amazon Prime channels. And what that did, it allowed the company to prove the concept that there was an appetite for the product, for the content at that price. And then 2 years later, they naturally expanded that into direct-to-consumer distribution, created their own apps, and ultimately allowing customers to access content when, where, and how they want. Lastly, it's going to allow you to increase your subscription base. As I mentioned, some numbers, there's some pretty significant market penetration. Essentially, being available on these platforms is going to allow you to piggyback those companies' success. Also, I'll add that being available on these platforms, whether it's Hulu or whether it's YouTube TV, or if I have a Roku account, I already have my credit card attached to many of these companies' platforms. So simply being able to add on additional product makes the entire sign-in flow a lot more seamless. So inherently, compared to the dropout you would typically see on somebody going in through a sign-up flow on a direct-to-consumer app, the success rate's a lot better on the OTT aggregators. So using, I mean, upon many things, in addition to a good OTT aggregation strategy, CuriosityStream currently has about over 13 million subscribers, and that was pre-COVID. So it's definitely something yet you want to consider in the mix. That said, though, there's some things to consider. So first of all, it's no customer information. Basically, you get some, you're relying on what the aggregator tells you. It might be number of streams, might be what kind of the top 10 titles, but you don't have a full deep dive into the analytics you would typically be looking for. Then also it's competition. So it's competition, not just, you're no longer competing with other networks, but you are also very much competing with these same distribution platforms, Roku, Amazon, and Apple, now that they effectively have their own OTT apps and these direct-to-consumer content hubs. So no longer the only distribution platforms, but you're competing against them in a way in which it does make advertising your own direct-to-consumer product on these platforms tricky, because they also have their own products carrying your same content, and so there's some it does get a little fuzzy at times. And then ultimately, kind of competing against yourself is these OTT aggregators are essentially promoting their hubs at the expense of your content. Revenue split, you're going to see anywhere from 15 to 30, sometimes could be even 50% of revenue is split between the distributor, being the aggregator, and yourself. Another consideration is loss of leverage. And basically, so where it gets tricky kind of behind the scenes is think of any publicly traded company. A lot of them they have their own Amazon channels. One of the last companies to put out any statistics being Viacom CBS. And essentially what they said is that the combined Showtime, OTT, and CBS All Access, there was about 13.5 million subscribers. So presuming that that's publicly that's public info. All your channel partners, your OTT aggregators, all to have the same info. So let's say if I'm Amazon and I see based on that number, you know what, I have 70% of that business is coming from my platform. It may change the conversation come renewal agreement, and then I may try to up that rate, because basically the decision for Viacom CBS in this theoretical scenario is that basically you pay the incremental fee or you risk losing a majority percent of your OTT business. And essentially with this, I mean, just go back to, I mean, it seems like a world ago, but the Fox and Roku spat over carrying Fox apps on Roku ahead of the Super Bowl. And even like the Universal Studios and AMC theaters, I mean, essentially these are all publicly fought contract negotiations, and you can certainly expect a lot of that in the future. Some OTT, so basically the takeaway, you certainly want to embrace these partnerships. You absolutely need to let consumers get access to your content, what you want, when they want, how they want. And it's not just about creating a Roku app, an Apple app, a Samsung app, but you really are expected to be available anywhere the customer is. So it's not just direct to consumer apps across all platforms, but also being available in any of these aggregator environments. And essentially, that's been the mantra of OTT from the beginning, is just consumer choice and enabling that and allowing that. And a good shopping analogy is some people like to shop boutique shops. I may go to the flower shop for my flowers, the bread shop, the butcher, the you name it. Or some people just like going to the grocery store and getting everything in all at once. And essentially you want to enable that for your customers. But you do not want to over rely on a single customer. Essentially, if one deal gone bad can kill a majority of your business, you've already relied on you already lied too much on the single partner. And essentially what you need to do is create customers to do business directly with you. And another analogy I use all the time is Toys R Us, and Toys R Us kind of forgot that. And ironically, Amazon was the company that kind of saw them take a downturn. And there's some things you could definitely do to create a reason for somebody to go directly to your app versus OTT aggregator. And that would be, could play with pricing and promotion, essentially offer annual subscriptions. Stars, BritBox, CBS are all offering discounts on 12-month subscription, which is cheaper than the monthly cost you would get through an aggregator. Also, I wrote exclusive content, but I'll put that more as bundling. Warner Media is expected to be dropping new episodes of existing popular shows on HBO Max prior to anywhere else. And then also Stars. Stars, for their direct-to-consumer subscribers, have been releasing episodes one day prior to when they premiere on linear TV. User experience is a whole conversation on itself, but basically you have the opportunity to create a more meaningful brand experience and tell consumers exactly why they would do that business directly with you. But basically it's about creating and maintaining that leverage. Social media. So some pros of social media, similar to OTT aggregators, enormous user bases, massive scale. Just to put that in context, YouTube has currently 2 billion monthly active users, and notably there are 4.4 billion number of internet users in the world. And so YouTube is almost 50% of that. And so while it's true, social platforms can handle most of the labor-intensive parts of building your own ad-supported network. Leading media companies are simply using social media for discovery, ultimately driving audiences back to the direct-to-consumer properties. And that has some of the following advantages for subscription-based companies: be able to drive new subscriptions; for ad-supported companies, being able to open up more ad inventory to sell to advertisers through your direct-to-consumer properties. So not unlike other third-party partners, there's risks to using a platform controlled by another company. Google can make a simple change in its algorithm, which completely breaks your video traffic, but ultimately that goes back to the point, no single platform should have the ability to shut your business down. Another thing is YouTube takes 45% of ad revenue. However, if you're using YouTube as a marketing channel and not a distribution channel, I guess you could chalk that up to the cost of just doing business, because the real growth should happen with your direct-to-consumer properties. Also, another thing, this one slipped in there, but yeah, 26% of users on desktop block advertisements, which if you're relying on distribution through YouTube, that is certainly something that you don't want. Limited branding, so there's not much opportunities to brand on YouTube. Basically, there's YouTube, that's the brand, and then you're just kind of secondary on that. So again, use YouTube, drive awareness, and funnel activity back to your own properties. So one thing, one way that we've seen YouTube drive traffic back to an owned and operated app is through like a batch and window strategy. And essentially what this is so we had an AVOD, an ad-supported client that would release original content on their owned and operated apps or direct-to-consumer apps, and then essentially a couple of days later upload that to YouTube. And why that worked is, first of all, it drives awareness, take advantage of the big install active user base on YouTube, promoted the content, promoted the service, also differentiated the company's direct-to-consumer app versus the YouTube offering. Essentially, at some point, they would all have the same content in them, but the idea that you could get the content right when it comes out, so the most loyal fans can have an incentive and a reason to use the company's owned and operated apps. And it should be pointed out that YouTube, second world's largest search engine after Google, and Google includes YouTube videos in search results. So if you're not using that to your advantage, you're really missing out. All right, free ad-supported streaming services. So these are, or FAST for short, are platforms that combine a mix of TV and digital content into an electronic programming guide, similar to what you would find on a pay TV service. And so your players here are, get that frozen here. There we go. All right, we have Xumo, who also notably OTT.X member. So Xumo launched in 2011, recently acquired by Comcast. Again, what feels like worlds ago, it actually wasn't not that long ago. Currently over 11 million active users. Pluto TV, purchased by Viacom CBS a little bit ago, founded in 2014, and currently Pluto TV is at 24 million monthly active users. And then other FASTs include IMDb, which is Amazon's FAST solution, and then Stir, which is Sinclair Media Group. So some benefits of FAST, and there's actually quite a bit, is so for a company, it essentially becomes starter homes. So think back to the Up Faith and Family example. They weren't ready for various reasons to go direct to consumer. So for a company that perhaps couldn't attract enough large of an audience to offset the cost of developing a whole direct-to-consumer suite of apps, FASTs are a good option, especially for ad-supported companies, and basically becoming their starter home for, it's great for mid-sized media companies as a way to kind of test out the content, test out an offering, and ultimately to get to a point where they can launch a direct-to-consumer service. For subscription-based services, I've seen a lot of great stuff by using ad-supported versions of that service as more or less barker channels that could then funnel traffic back into their owned and operated connected TV apps. And some of these platforms, like for example, if I'm running on Xumo TV on an LG device, being able to actually call up an advertisement and have that actually deep link into your LG app is definitely an opportunity that you'd be able to leverage as a subscription-based platform company. All right, let me blast through these. We're getting short on time here. So FAST, basically you want to consider is where does this fit into your distribution strategy? So for example, what are your goals? Is your goal to build a direct-to-consumer brand, or are you simply trying to diversify your distribution across as many platforms as possible? For subscription-based services, as I mentioned, FASTs are a great opportunity to drive top of funnel awareness. For AVODs, the ability to diversify your distribution across several platforms as possible. Definitely opportunity. However, you do want to consider that potentially cannibalizing your direct-to-consumer offering if direct-to-consumer is your first and foremost goal. Basically, just that's what I said. Get through here. All right. Last but not least, direct-to-consumer, the holy grail of your OTT distribution strategy. And by direct-to-consumer, I'm talking about your own branded website, your connected TV apps, your mobile apps across all platforms. Customers that watch or subscribe are doing so directly with you. You own that customer relationship. Benefits of direct-to-consumer is going to be the access to direct customer relationships and user data. When you have data, you're going to be able to make informed content licensing and creation decisions. You'll be able to know what works, what doesn't. You'll be able to understand metrics like cost per subscriber in order to what it actually costs to create a new original series. Something Netflix pioneered back with the House of Cards, and being able to identify what a show would cost by its subscriber base. For ad-supported services, you're going to be able to command higher CPMs with more data, being able to personalize advertisements to the user. You're going to be able to personalize user experience, in turn build up brand loyalty, reduce churn, and you're going to be effectively going to be able to market to your customers. You're going to understand things like customer acquisition costs, being able to make impactful marketing programs, being able to maximize your return on ad spend, and hopefully allow you to increase acquisitions and increase acquisitions, engagement, and retention. And also no revenue sharing, but sort of. So for direct-to-consumer apps, let's just say Roku, Amazon, Apple TV, running direct-to-consumer apps on those platforms. Those platforms also do offer in-app billing capability, and essentially there is a platform tax for using that, typically from 15 to 30%. And I'm definitely for embracing that, but also back to what I said before, develop some reasons why customers would do business directly with you. And some companies that have got that right are Disney. Let me skip out here. So yeah, back to this idea of create reasons for customers to do business directly with you. You want to always be proactive, and so there's some creative solutions around getting around the platform tax while still embracing it. So Disney has been successful with a bundle of Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN bundle, and basically the only place they get that is through their direct-to-consumer environment. And if you're a provider and you don't have multiple streaming services, I've seen some other things work well. We have a client that offers, as part of signing up directly through them, they also put on events, and then direct subscribers get discounts on those events. Also, what I've seen work well is credits. Credits could be for product, but credits also for transactional purchases, for buying premium content. Basically, when you sign up directly for this subscription service, you also get a bank of credits that can be applied to watching premium titles not included in the subscription. And again, only way to do that is through a direct-to-consumer environment. By doing that, you can bypass that platform tax. And I mean, essentially, I kind of skipped over this slide, but ABP, always be proactive. I created 4320 because I realized so many companies thought with OTT apps, direct-to-consumer apps, or set it, forget it. There's so much that you need to do on an ongoing basis, from content strategy, from marketing. The job's never done. Netflix alone, in the course of a year, does upwards of 200 plus product tests per year, just to make sure that they're maximizing ROI and saving costs when they can, maximizing customer lifetime value. Because if you're not currently testing and improving to stay ahead, ultimately you're going to get left behind. So, I mean, basically, it is a nuanced topic, but choosing the best mix is somewhat of a trial error process, and it does depend based on, the individual company. And what I realized through consulting, as similar as you think two companies are, they're completely different from one another, and what strategy works for one company may be completely different from the other. But as I mentioned, you should always be testing and see what works and what doesn't.